The Woman Who Found Her Voice. For 4 years, Clara Hayes lived like perfection was a religion. Every morning, she rose before dawn, brushed her hair in the mirror, applied flawless makeup, and slipped back into bed, pretending she had just woken up that way. Her husband, Nathan, never saw her without mascara, never knew that the woman he called naturally beautiful was quietly terrified of being ordinary. Every day she measured her waist, counted her calories, ran 5 miles. If she ever dared to eat a slice of cake, she dragged her best friend to the gym for a 3-hour penance. Even after 2 children, Clara's body looked like it had been carved from marble. But her spirit, her laughter, her ease, had been starved. Nathan was a vice president at a large firm, charming and quick-witted. He loved comedy, so Clara made it her mission to make him laugh. They'd spend nights in underground clubs watching amateur stand-up comedians. Nathan would point out what worked, what didn't, and Clara would write it down, like a diligent student studying his moods. She cooked for him, smiled for him, lived for him. And for a long time, she thought that was love. But perfection, she learned, is exhausting to watch and impossible to live with. One night, after a bad show where Nathan bombed trying his own jokes, he came home furious. His pride, always fragile, cracked, and Clara became the target. His words were sharper than knives, his silence colder than stone. She tried to hold the family together, for the children, for her parents, for the illusion. But Nathan had already found someone else, his secretary, a girl who barely knew how to spell responsibility. When he left, he didn't even look back. Clara called her mother, hoping for comfort. Instead, she got judgment. "Maybe, darling, you made him feel small," her mother said. Her father was harsher. "You wanted freedom? Earn it. Bring him back for the children." That night, Clara opened a bottle of red wine, sat alone in the quiet house, and drank until her hands stopped shaking. Then, barefoot, she walked out into the rain. She ended up in the same comedy bar she used to visit with Nathan, the one filled with neon lights and ghosts of laughter. People stared. The perfect wife, the woman from the glossy magazines, was now drenched and broken, mascara washing down her cheeks. Somewhere between sorrow and surrender, she grabbed the microphone. "Why?" she slurred. "Did they put the bathroom so close to the stage? You can hear everything. Comedy and constipation, same sound effects." The crowd roared with laughter, and for the first time in years, Clara felt alive. The owner of the bar, a fierce woman named Mona, was stunned. "You've got guts," she said afterward. "Come back tomorrow. I want you on that stage, sober this time." But Clara refused. She was still living in Nathan's shadow, still believing she had no right to exist without his permission. Then, as if fate wanted to play its own joke, she learned the next morning that Nathan had left her nothing. No money, no house, only a notebook filled with the jokes he used to write. Clara stared at those pages for a long time, and then, with trembling hands, she began to write her own. The next week, she returned to the club. No makeup, no mask, just herself. Her voice shook at first, then it steadied. "You ever notice how men say they love natural women, but freak out when they actually see one?" Laughter. Real, loud, honest laughter. Mona leaned against the bar, grinning. "You've got it," she whispered. And she did. Clara had found something she never had before. Her voice. Soon, her name appeared on small posters, then on bigger ones. People came not for the jokes, but for the truth behind them. Her sets were raw, funny, and deeply human. "My husband left me for a girl who thinks existential crisis is a perfume," she'd say. "Good for him. At least one of us smells like denial." Every show ended with a standing ovation. Every night, she peeled off another layer of fear. Months later, she was invited to perform at a comedy festival in New York. It was the biggest stage of her life. Backstage, minutes before her set, Clara sat alone, clutching the old notebook. The pages were wrinkled, her handwriting wild and alive. Then came a knock on the door. "Clara," said a voice she hadn't heard in over a year. "It's me." Nathan stood in the doorway. He looked smaller somehow, like someone who had lost his reflection. "You look Different, he said quietly. Clara smiled faintly. That's because I stopped pretending. He nodded, awkward, vulnerable. I watched your videos. You're good. I laughed. Thank you, she said, though her tone carried no need for approval. After a long silence, he asked, Are you happy? She looked at him, really looked, and realized something strange. She no longer felt pain, or anger, or longing. Just peace. Yes, she said, even when I'm not laughing. That night, Clara stepped onto the stage in front of thousands. She looked out at the sea of faces and saw Nathan sitting in the front row. She smiled. Funny thing, she began. My ex-husband said I wasn't funny. Now I make people laugh for a living. Guess he was wrong about a lot of things. The room exploded in laughter. Nathan laughed too, not bitterly this time, just knowingly. Later, after the show, they met by the exit. Thank you, he said softly, for turning my mistakes into art. Clara shrugged. Someone had to make it worth it. He walked away, and this time, she didn't look back. Outside, New York glistened under the rain. Clara stepped into the streetlight, lifted her face to the drizzle, and laughed, quietly, freely. In that moment, she understood. She had spent years hiding behind makeup, perfection, and other people's approval. But the moment she let it all go, the world finally saw her. I used to think love meant losing yourself for someone else, she thought. Now I know real love begins when you find yourself again. The city lights shimmered like applause. Clara walked down the street, a microphone in her hand, her laughter echoing into the night, not as a punchline, but as a promise. And that's how the woman who once lived in silence found her voice